Welcome to Mastering Life's Adventures, an educational podcast about tapping into your true self, the soul, the substance of your life, to discover what life's ups and downs are really about, and how to have a greater sense of purpose, peace, joy, and fulfillment. I am Dr. Judith Holder, your host, coach, psychologist, fellow seeker who enjoys diving into the connections between spirituality, psychology, wellness, and your everyday life's adventures. All preparing and polishing you like the facets of a magnificent diamond to be your best self. If you're craving more from your life, you are in the right place. Come, let's journey together and transforming what you know into who you really are. Mastering Life's Adventures begins now. There comes a moment on the spiritual path when we realize that healing is not about fixing what is broken, but about remembering what has always been whole. And this series that I'm beginning is an invitation into that remembering. Hidden Emotional Alchemy, Transforming Pain into Spiritual Power, explores the deeper truth behind feelings and emotions, not as weaknesses to overcome, but as the sacred energies entrusted to us for the growth of the soul. Every wound, every pain, every emotional reaction carries within it a hidden grace, the opportunity to transform consciousness. Here, pain is not viewed as punishment. It is initiation. It is instruction. It is the raw material of spiritual power. Across this series, we will explore how emotions move through the body, the mind, and soul, and how, when understood and rightly directed, they become vehicles for awakening, compassion, and divine freedom, the liberty and liberation of your soul, step by step, day by day, month by month, year by year. It is the journey through feeling into wisdom, mastery, and love. And if we have ever asked why pain seems to follow growth, why emotions feel so intense on the spiritual path, or how to turn inner struggle into lasting peace, this series is for you. I want to welcome you to the new year and to Hidden Emotional Alchemy. The work begins within. I'm back for another key to soul progress and diving a little bit deeper into the art of emotional alchemy. All alchemy begins with the wound. There comes a moment in the spiritual path when we realize that healing is not about avoiding pain, but about understanding it. Not resisting wounds, but interpreting them. And not asking only, how do I heal? But what is this experience reshaping me to become? So in beginning to think about wounds, it's not wounds as punishment, not wounds as failure, but wounds as initiations of the soul. Ancient teachings remind us that nothing enters our experience without purpose. Emotional pain, especially, is never meaningless. It is energy seeking resolution, consciousness seeking refinement, and love seeking a higher expression. In this episode, we explore hurt and resentment, not as enemies to be defeated, but as messengers, asking to be understood, to be recognized, and to be acted upon. Because all energy misused must be redeemed by love. So let's begin. From a spiritual perspective, wounds are thresholds, mark moments where the soul encounters limitation and is invited to transcend it, not by denial, but by awareness. In modern psychology, emotional wounds are described as imprints, memory stored not only in the mind, but in the body. Neuroscience confirms this, especially pain, which activates the same neural pathways or centers as physical pain. We're talking about the emotional pain here, giving you an awareness that emotional pain can also be similar to the physical pain that we experience. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. But the spiritual science goes further. It teaches that emotional pain arises from divine energy, life force, and has been qualified by fear, separation, or misunderstanding. That wound is not the energy itself. It is a misdirection of energy that has not yet been brought back into harmony. Think about this, because it's easier to get disoriented about pain when we're in it for long periods of time or even short periods of time. When you can be able to look at it through the lens, walking a spiritual path, to understanding that some of this emotional pain arises because there's some energy that needs to be realigned, needs to be transmuted, needs to be refigured in some particular way. Whether we are aware of it or not, there are no mishaps, even though we feel that there are. Certainly, I understand that. But for those walking a spiritual path, you come to the awareness of, if this is coming into my life at this stage, there is something I need to be alert to. And instead of moving towards getting angry about it, you get into being curious about what's up. Why is this happening now? So the wound is not the energy itself. It is the misdirection of energy that has not yet been brought back into harmony. This is why pain persists when ignored, and why pain dissolves when understood. The soul does not wound us to punish us. It wounds us to awaken us. The I am presence, the Atman, and the Lord, the Christ, the Creator, is not doing it to punish us. It's asking us to look at how we're using our energy, subtly or overtly, because it's all of God's energy. And God wants you to use it in the appropriate way and in the correct way. So I have the story of James. As we're talking about this wounding that can happen. And I'm going to talk about it from the standpoint of forgiveness, which is sometimes very hard to do. Let me share James' story. James was loyal by nature. He believed in partnership, a shared vision, and mutual respect. When his business partner betrayed him, selling their shared work without his input, it really shocked him. The wound ran deeper than the anger. At first, resentment took hold. Not loud resentment, but a heavy resentment, a more quiet, subtle resentment, a bitterness. The kind that replays conversations, rewrites history, and quietly drains vitality. James told himself he had moved on. The wound is there and not being looked at, that has created through his partner betraying him. But his body told a different story. His chest tightened whenever the name came up. His sleep grew restless. His enthusiasm dulled. Eventually, he sat with a counselor who offered a simple suggestion: tell the truth. Without editing it, tell the truth. James wrote for hours. The anger surfaced first, then grief, then something unexpected: self-blame. In his process of journaling, it uncovered layers like an onion skin that were being pushed back, moved back. And what he found was, beneath the resentment was a quieter pain. I trusted. I believed. I feel foolish. And in that moment, clarity arose. Forgiveness was not about excusing the betrayal. It was about reclaiming the energy trapped inside it. He realized resentment was not protecting him. It was binding him to the wound. Not through denial, but through understanding, the emotional charge began to resolve. The emotional charge began to dissolve itself. Spiritually speaking, James had completed an alchemical cycle. The energy misused through betrayal had been redeemed by love. Not sentimental love, but conscious release. This is how forgiveness becomes freedom. He was willing to put in the effort, and his effort came through journaling. Yours may come in a different way when you start to pull it back and see what's underneath this energy. Why am I continue moving into this perseveration or this rumination process that happens to me? And when I actually take action to dive a little bit deeper into it, I come up with a greater awareness of what's happening, which begins the process of alchemy, of freeing yourself from these emotions. Emotions are just signals that are trying to help us understand in some way of what's going to be happening. And it's up to us to be able to dive a little bit more into them. When you think about the body, it has emotional memory and energy that you want to tie into and understand. But we do understand through neuroscience that emotional memory is stored somatically. The hippocampus records experience. The amygdala assigns emotional charge. When similar circumstances arise, the body responds before the mind can interfere. It's just right there. The body responds, the somatic response. And this explains why wounds resurface seemingly uninvited. But spiritually, this reoccurrence is not failure. It is opportunity. What returns is not the pain itself, but the unfinished lesson. Did you hear? Unfinished lesson is coming back up again, giving us another opportunity. The soul does not repeat experiences to torment us, but to offer another chance at mastery. And when awareness enters, the emotional pattern loses its grip over us. When love is applied, the energy realigns. When love is applied, the energy realigns. I said that twice because we don't realize the full value of what love helps to heal in our life. So this is the science of redemption, both neurologically and spiritually. There is another kind of wound that often goes unnoticed because no one else caused it. Mary Jo, for example, loved preparing food. She found peace in the rhythm of cutting vegetables and in the quiet order of simple tasks. One afternoon, while preparing a salad, which had carrots, cucumber, purple cabbage, radishes, and turnips, she applied extra pressure to cut through the dense turnip. The knife slipped and it cut into the flesh of her thumb. Not severely, but enough to sting, bleed, and interrupt the moment. Her first thought was not anger. It was not panic. It was simply why. She has been a spiritual aspirant on the path for a number of years and was just saying, why now? What's going on here? As she cleaned the wound, she listened inwardly. And spiritually, she held a conviction many forget. There are no accidents, not in a superstitious sense, but in a conscious one. As she stood quietly, contemplating, another awareness emerged. For several days, she had been feeling irritated with a family member. Nothing dramatic, nothing spoken, just subtle inner friction, tightness, impatience, quiet annoyance. And sometimes, even with this family member, a shortness in her response, a defensiveness that is subtle that was taking place. But it was not anger, but it was disharmony. And suddenly, the symbolism became clear for her. Those unaddressed irritations were like small inner cuts, minor, repetitive, and unresolved. She had not expressed anger outwardly, but she had allowed inner discord to persist. And the teaching surfaced gently that harmony is the thing that protects those that are walking a spiritual path. Maintaining that inner harmony is so critical and important for you to be able to hear your inner self, your soul self, the Christic energy that exists within you, your I am presence, your creator. And where these slights are taking place of disharmony, we cannot hear. This gets us back into an awareness of, if I had this particular accident, or you had a particular accident, or others had a particular accident, be it small or great, we have to ask ourselves, is what has happened for us to be out of alignment with our own creator, our own source? And so when this information with Mary Jo arose, that harmony is the protector of the spiritual aspirant. This was not guilt. This was not a shame or shamefulness. This was alignment. Mary Jo realized the pain was not punishment. Keep on saying that, because we always think sometimes the pain that we do have is punishing us for something. But I really would invite you to think differently. That it was instruction for Mary Jo. It's instruction for us, each one of us. Not caused by another's energy, but by her own feeling nature, drifting slightly from center. That we don't have to have external things to create pain for us. I was talking earlier about James and what had happened to him and with his partner. But we can do it all by ourselves. We can inflict pain. And it's important for us to realize this. It's important for us to take a moment out when we have situations that happen and be curious. And as we reflect internally, we can make a different choice. We can do the correction that is needed. We can know that we're maybe slightly off or drifting off our center in Christ, in our soul's awareness, in understanding God's direction for our life. So the wound took its time in healing because due to the nature of the cut, but it was healing. The lesson remained. And this is the grace hidden in self-inflicted pain, a quiet invitation to return to balance before deeper disharmony forms. This is grace, and we don't realize God shows us grace in so many different ways. We may say we stubbed our toe, for example, or it may be something more severe than that, but we're still alive. We're still moving forward in our lives, and we still have to be able to take the time out and reflect. What is it trying to be learned? Not from the lens of being critical of ourselves or feeling guilty or shame. Those are dense emotional energies that only pull us further down, disconnecting us further from ourselves, disconnecting us further from our heart tie with something greater than ourselves, which is our soul, the Christ, the Creator. We ask God for forgiveness in those situations, inflicted by ourselves or done to us. We ask for forgiveness, as James came around to be able to do. And as Mary Jo comes to the awareness of needing to do in order to be back into alignment with God's law, God's direction, moving us further up the mountain. Through all teachings runs one unchangeable law. All energy misused must be redeemed by love. Fear is energy misdirected. Resentment is love withheld. Hurt is connection interrupted. Love does not erase wounds. It transforms them. It requires energy and returns it to its original purpose. This is why emotional mastery is not suppression, but transmutation. Not avoidance, but awareness. When we listen, the wound completes its work and dissolves. We have to be willing to go through the discomfort due to the out of alignment state, which we were or were not aware of. But through creating space and asking the question to our higher self, our inner self, what is it, Lord, you're trying to show me? What is it, Lord, you're trying to teach me? Help me to see it. Guide me through this. And we eventually, step by step, come to a greater awareness. So whether pain comes from betrayal or loss or subtle inner misalignment, the invitation remains the same. To listen without condemnation, to observe without judgment, to choose harmony over habit. Every wound is an invitation, not meant to define us, but to refine us. Pain is not the enemy. Unconsciousness is. And when awareness enters, healing truly begins. The next episode, we will explore how pain communicates through the body, mind, and the soul, and how learning its language allows us to transform heaviness into light Harmony is not weakness. It is spiritual strength in its quietness and power. And try to add, as you're moving along this week until next week, harmony. Am I being harmonious? And what is that experience like for me? If I'm not, how may I get back into a point of harmony with myself? Be willing to experiment. Have fun. Something to think about. Bye for now. Thank you for joining me for this episode on Mastering Life's Adventures, being your best self through soul evolution. If you have enjoyed what you've heard today, I would be delighted if you would share this episode with others, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe to my Mastering Life's Adventures podcast. Look forward to your joining the next episode. Please leave any comments or suggestions you might have below. Bye for now.